Let's talk about the fires of Pompeii.
Yay.
Oh, yep, yeah, here we go. See, let's just start. Let's begin this immediately, addressing the elephant in the room, which is that Lucy does not like this episode because she's a crazy person.
Crazy just now.
I've had my suspicions for a little while. I mean, I can't think of a single sane person that's ever been on this podcast, but whatever.
But to be fair, I really don't have anything negative to say.
Well, try to put it into words because we've kind of had this discussion, and like I understand why you don't care for like the 10th Doctor's character in this one, but just for the sake of attempting it, like let's try to lay out what you think doesn't work in this one.
I have thought about it quite a bit, and I can't really name anything. It's just one of those things I sit down and I'm just kind of bored through most of it. And I don't like the elitist God doctor stuff, but it's not something that would ruin the episode for me. And there's scenes I actually do think are really funny in this, especially, with Donna and stuff and the water pistol. But I don't know, it's just one of those episodes where there's scenes individually I really like, and there's some good emotional moments, but for some reason, as a whole, sitting there watching it, I didn't get into it. And the only thing I could come up with is whenever they're in the house with the family, I'm completely bored, banging my head against the wall, bored.
Okay, I don't have that. Like, yeah, the family aren't particularly deep characters in and of themselves, but I don't know, they work off the Doctor and Donna well enough, I thought.
I think that's what killed it for me. It's just, okay, got big chunks of the episode. For whatever reason, my brain's not connecting with parts of it. I like parts of it I don't like.
Well, so just to lay this out for people who've not observed our conversations about the whole thing, like you have a particular issue with the 10th Doctor being like really egotistical, and in this episode that kind of manifests as like all of the sort of Jesus-like symbolism of him like deciding to be like, oh, he's the magnanimous savior who goes out and like he saves the people, and like if he does or doesn't do it, he's got like the power of a god or whatever. I feel like I'm butchering your point with my words.
For everyone to know, while I don't like that, it doesn't ruin the episode for me. To me, that is just a small part of a bigger thing throughout the Russell T Davies era that I don't like. It's a theme I don't like. It doesn't necessarily ruin every episode. I wouldn't say so much ruin the third season finale because I did not like the whole thing, but that was like the big cherry on the terrible pie. But this doesn't ruin it. It's just one of those things where here's the theme that I find to be very problematical, but it's not ruining the episode for me. It's just something I would point out if I'm trying to make that point. The lead is in it.
Well, I have some things to kind of say about that, but for now, I'm gonna give it to Edward. One, because I don't think I actually like know Edward's comprehensive thoughts on this episode, and two, I have a whole bunch of notes which are all over the place, and I don't know if they're gonna segue into each other well, so I'm probably just gonna list them off like when I get the chance. So for now, Edward, your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah. Hi, Doctor. If you could have just explained, Donna, that you can't go back in time and fix disasters from the get-go, that would have been great.
But it also would have robbed us of a really cool episode. Well, maybe not. Maybe it wouldn't have, because the whole thing is that the TARDIS is still gone when they show back up, right? So, yeah, I mean, he really could have. I'm not sure how much it would have changed, but it would have probably been a smart move.
Yeah, it's like, the Doctor and Donna have a big mini-fight about what to do with Pompeii. Dr. Time TARDIS, yeah, Donna human, no.
Can we just make a side note that all their interactions together are gold?
Exactly. Like, that's part of why I would say good thing he didn't do that. The two of them together are perfect. There's not a single moment where they're like fighting or whatever where I'm not like, yes, more of this, please.
At least Donna wasn't talking to Nine.
That would never end. The sassiness.
Because Nine would have been brutal and possibly have dropped her off home, taking her out of the TARDIS after this.
And she would drag him with her, go off in the volcano.
Anyway, I like the episode, but aside from the final moments, doesn't do anything exceptional. I mean, I do like it. I think it's a good episode, but that's just my general thoughts on the majority of Series 4
Ouch.
as a whole.
Does anyone remember Series 11? Me being in the minority is like not a rare occurrence.
I am always in the minority. I'm usually the one that likes the episode that everyone hates and vice versa.
Well, I mean, I can kind of see what you mean. Partially, I think that's true for me as well, but that's mostly just because I have such a high standard for this show that I consider most of what's done here just really good by this show's standards. I would probably consider this episode a masterpiece if it was a part of most other shows. Lucy, you mentioning you being bored. I'm never bored with this episode. I feel like the pacing in particular is like super smooth. Like every plot point just like blends right into the next one in a way that feels really natural. The exposition, and there's like a lot of exposition in this episode, is always delivered in a way that's like either really tense or really fun, like the Doctor and the High Priestess, or that's packaged with a lot of like genuine drama. So it never feels like we're just getting plot dumped at us, even though that technically is happening like all the time in this episode.
Do get
And
hints of the finale being dumped at us when the episode stops the story to mention something on Donna's back and that someone the Doctor knows is returning. The whole story just stops, and I just for the sake of that moment, and I hate it when anything does that ever.
You're not necessarily wrong. Let me argue why it's still necessary. The thing being on the back and the Doctor having a friend who's returning, those two lines specifically, yeah, get rid of them and nothing much changes. But you know, this show, we've got to foreshadow what's coming somehow.
Foreshadowed what was going on at the end of Partners in Crime, so why can't the episode just be purely standalone?
I think it's standalone enough. Those little tiny things never really bothered me. There's like, okay, it is part of the overall story and all that, and it's just a little hint of it. To me, those kind of things don't really bother. It's like the cracks in the background or something.
He's right in that the other big foreshadowing thing that we do, which is Pyrovilia being lost, it ties into the episode. You could argue it's vital for plot reasons because they don't have a place to go back to, so that's why all this happens. And here you've got these two things that really do just feel kind of shoved in there, and yet at the same time, they're only 2 lines of dialogue, so I don't mind them. Plus, I would not get rid of that scene as a whole because we need to really establish that the soothsayers here all actually do tell the truth. And so if they see the future for our 2 main characters on top of like seeing personal details from their past and everything, that's a good way to be like, no, this is like legit. It's not phony or whatever. So I can see if you're in the writer's room being like, all right, I have a chance to foreshadow the Doctor's future and Donna's future, as well as like laying down a plot point for this episode. Yeah, let's just kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
I can see that.
Like, we've established that the Doctor and Donna together are great, but I feel like a lot of the Doctor's lines in this episode are just really good. Like, the dialogue in this one is really clever, I thought. Like, almost every scene has some really good line in it.
A lot of good lines in this episode, I will say, which is why I wish I liked it.
And also just, like, little clever character bits for the Doctor, like when he offers that handshake, because, like, he knows something is up with that arm. And like the calculus doesn't take it, and then he just rips the arm off.
Also, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, or should we call it the number 12?
Yeah, you're right. See, I didn't even think about it until just now.
Peter Capaldi is amazing.
Yeah, and like it goes to show his range that like I don't see any of 12 in this character. No. Like he strikes me as a completely different guy.
He doesn't come off doctorish at all.
And he's very different than his Torchwood character, which
we'll get
looking forward to talking about him.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about him in Torchwood because it makes me sad, but I know that we're going to have to do it anyway.
Well, it's supposed to make you sad.
And we have another reoccurring Doctor Who actor. I don't know if you know this.
Karen as a cameo.
Where she goes around looking like her eyes are going to pop out all the time.
she goes from a role that requires a lot of makeup to a role that requires almost no makeup to a role that requires a lot of makeup again.
Woo!
Full circle. Her career is full
Yeah.
circle.
Also, just speaking about that scene, or like the main scene that she's in with like the Sisterhood of the Civil. I love that scene. That scene's so great. Where it's like the doctor rescues Donna. She just got kidnapped, and of course we start with like Donna being like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
Yeah, with the doctor being like, "Wait, where's Donna?" Like, which just makes me wonder, how could they have snatched her away quietly, considering how much of a loudmouth Donna is?
That is true.
Yeah.
There should have been drugs involved there.
But then, like, he rescues her, and the two of them have this, like, really fun back and forth. This is one of the scenes, and, like, one of the episodes, but particularly this bit that I feel like I'd point to as, like, why do I love this show? Just because I don't think any other show could have this, where it's this mix of really clever dialogue comedy and this really bizarre, weird situation where it's like one of our main characters just got kidnapped by a bunch of cultists led by this weird volcanic rock woman, and our other main character comes in, rescues her. The two of them just have a real casual, like, back and forth chat before he whips out a water pistol and like starts interrogating them over their plan to take over the world. Only this show can give us this.
Wow. Maybe Supernatural could get away with it.
Yeah, I will say in the earlier seasons, like around the second, third, fourth, and fifth, they did do this kind of stuff, and it did work very well. I will give it to them there. It's not like that. So.
That said, there's also a little bit in that scene that I really like because it kind of brings it down for a moment. And it's like, for as much as we talk about the Doctor having an ego, it's nice to have these little bits where it shows us that he still has a lot of empathy, even for people who he's kind of against in the moment. Where he's like, he looks at the rock lady's arm and he's like, "Does it hurt?" And she's like, "It's necessary." And he's like, "Who told you that?" And like the look on his face and the delivery of that line, it's like he really feels bad for this poor woman. It's like someone told her she had to suffer like this for some reason, and like even though she's causing all these problems, he has like no ill will toward her necessarily.
Yeah, she's been kind of brainwashed.
Yeah.
What did you think of the rock monster, or what you want to call it?
The Pyrophiles.
What did you think?
Yeah.
Which I think that's the real reason why Lucy doesn't like the episode. The dated CGI that the show can't help.
I thought the makeup job on like the girl and stuff was really creepy. And that her voice, I still think that's the best, like, done with that voice modifier thing. Like, it's really creepy every time she just opens her mouth to say anything. Like, I cringe.
Keeping in mind that this is a TV budget in 2008, I think they've aged remarkably well.
Yeah, they don't look horrible for what
they never look real. They don't look like they're really there, but you know, they're not terrible designs, and I'm never distracted by how fake they look. I'm just accepting them like, okay, it's a pyrovile.
I think certain other monsters actually distracted me more, like the one like Father Day. Those things actually distracted me the way they look. This was just kind of like in the background and didn't mind.
Yeah, and that in part is that I don't like the design for those things, even though I know a lot of people do.
Yes.
But also that's a case of like, yeah, that feels very Sci-Fi Channel. Is it just because it's brown? I associate a lot of bad Sci-Fi Channel effects with creatures that are just big and like grayish brown.
Yeah. I think, like I said, the makeup effect though on that one woman and the voice, really, really scary.
Also, again, that's another scene with a lot of little lines that I like where in the middle of this really tense like interrogation / exposition dump, the Doctor's like, "Don't get yourselves in a lava," and he turns to Donna, is like, "Lava? No," and she just rolls her eyes. And then, like, after all of it's done, his response is like, "So the whole world is at stake. Thank you." And then he's like, "Okay, finally, I can do something."
Like, I have to intervene now.
Yeah. And like part of why I like the episode so much is just that it's this really fun, adventurous episode with like bits of pathos for the first 2/3. And then as soon as they get inside of that like rock machine thing that's gonna set off the explosion, like the mood comes down hard, and like the real issues of the situation where the Doctor and Donna are like butting heads are like laid out on the table, and both of the characters are like really full of emotion, and it's just feelings. And then the plot stuff is all resolved, and the aliens are all defeated, aka the easy part is taken care of. The
And then
two
we
of
have
them,
to deal with the very emotionally devastating part of being forced to let all these people die in a horrific event in history that has to happen.
yeah, like we got rid of all the heightened adventure elements, and now we have to deal with the hard human decision making part, and the best they can do is compromise and save a few people.
Do take issue with.
Okay, go into that now, because like I have a whole thing with just this stretch of the episode and why I am fascinated by it.
In Father's Day, they established that saving someone that was supposed to die has bad consequences. And yet here, the Doctor does the same thing, and there's no consequence.
This is what I'm getting into, where I'm like, we just have to ignore the Reapers. We have to. We can't have this show. Like, I feel genuinely Father's Day is a great episode. Introducing the Reapers, especially in the first series of this show, is a mistake. And we just have to ignore it because I think everyone realized it was a mistake. The Doctor's thing is saving people, and sometimes that involves saving people like in the past. And he's a time traveler. Everything is the past to him. Like, at what point do we draw the line between this person in the past had to die for reasons and these people in the past didn't? Like, where is it written down that because one person, that being Pete, had to die for the sake of the timeline, like his death is a fixed point, everyone's death is a fixed point? Like, okay, the fact that Pompeii happened and everyone got like exploded and like lavaed on by Vesuvius, that happened. Apparently it's not fixed that every single individual there died. Like, we can save 4 people, I guess. I don't know. The show's just really inconsistent, and we just gotta let it go. Like the whole
I won't
like who
let
can
it
you
go, damn it.
No, never.
we're never going to be consistent with like, okay, what historical events can and cannot be changed and how much. For the sake of the timeline being what it is, Pompeii has to happen. And it did happen. We just saved 4 people. So like, at what point do you decide that that's not okay? That the answer is it depends on the writer.
Yeah, I think if they wanted to have some kind of consistency with it, the point fixing time thing, if it would cause a paradox of some kind.
The crux to all of this, and like all of the episodes dealing with this problem, and why I kind of love how it's handled here, is that the real question isn't what are the rules. The real question is how much power does the Doctor have in any given situation.
Yeah.
And so like,
Or you can do it like this. As long as it plays out mostly the same way, like, okay, Pompeii exploded and everything, they just changed that a few more people survived, but it still pretty much happens the same way, then they can do something about it.
Concept with this whole bit of time and history that I think was never capitalized on Doctor Who, which is, what if the Doctor ends up at a point in history where he is forced to be the bad guy so that an important moment in history can play out the way it does? Have it be a comedy.
That would be pretty dark comedy.
well, I don't know, minus the comedy part, I feel like that's what this episode is. This is touching on all the things, like how much power should the Doctor have? Is it a problem of the Doctor shows up and changes the past, or was it always that the Doctor had shown up and changed the past, and that was just what it was? The Doctor blowing up Vesuvius is kind of heartbreaking, because that's the moment where any pretense of him being like neutral and just following like a prime directive or whatever goes out the window. He spends the whole episode up to that point like telling Donna, look, I've got no power here. The situation is completely out of my control. When in reality, like, it comes down to one moment where he holds all of the power in the situation and can choose where it goes. The thing we want to do with all of the bad, like, big historical events is we want to treat it like what they are in reality, which is that they're just some unfortunate thing that happened to happen, and the Doctor just kind of has to let it play out. but that's not what it is. It's a thing that he makes happen by choice because there is no other option. And suddenly it's way more personal and tragic than if the volcano had just like blown up without his input. So like the scene where he and Donna set off the explosion and we see all the soothsayers like simultaneously freak the hell out. They realize the future is changing. That moment is like really affecting for me, and it always really affects me whenever I watch this episode. There's just something really powerful about the fact that for all of the talk about like fixed points and the future being set and all the soothsayers and the doctor being all confident that time is this unbending force, all it took was two people deciding to press a button and the course of history was changed in a split second and everyone felt it.
Yeah. But I will say, they know that the volcano goes off, so technically it already happened in time.
That's
but
the question. Is that what happened, or is the Doctor and Donna? Because it brings up the question of like determinism, which I think is inherently interesting and also kind of horrifying. Because the question is, does time control free will, or does free will control time? Was a fixed moment created because the Doctor made a choice, or was the Doctor put in the position to make that choice in the first place because the moment is fixed? You can ask this about anything. So, like, what degree is time something that we weave through our choices, or to what degree are we puppets and time is the puppet master? And like the way the episode paints it, especially the way that the Doctor talks about the time war, is really interesting when we contrast it with something like Waters of Mars or Day of the Doctor.
Or the Seventh Doctor's Run.
Yes, that also. But like clearly by the end of this episode, the Doctor still believes that he is subject to time's whims rather than the other way around. And we will get to a point where he feels the other way around, and it's going to be really not great.
But yeah, it's pretty deep if you really want to go into it, because it's like a chicken or the egg thing, or how Fry handled it, or Futurama handled it, where Fry became his own grandpa. But yeah, I mean, there's no real right answer to any of this. It's just one of those things, if you try to think about it, you're probably going to explode.
Well, I don't know. I feel like thinking about it just gives me a deeper appreciation for the episode.
Nick, go with the joke.
I want to talk about determinism.
Orchestrate a separate video about that when you deconstruct the Matrix.
We probably should make like an entire different video of just talking about this subject alone, and it'd just be like the most geekiest, nerdiest thing we've ever done.
Well, I mean, I could, yeah, but also I just think it's good for like the character side of the story here. Like that's really what the Doctor and Donna's argument is about. Like if you boil it down to like the most plain terms, one of them is saying time controls what we do, and the other one is saying what we do controls time, and the two of them can't really change each other's minds, so they just have to find a middle ground.
It's like an argument between an absurdist and a nihilist.
Pretty much.
Life has no meaning. I don't care. That doesn't make any sense. Too bad.
Pretty much.
This episode has it all for me. Like, this is one of my favorites. Like, it's funny, it's fun, but also really, really dramatic. It's got a plot that doesn't feel like totally generic. The side characters could definitely be better, but they're fine. They're fine. They're fine. Especially Quintus. Quintus has his own like little tiny arc within an episode. It's fine. But I really like this one. It's really cool. It's really, really good.
Edward, final thoughts.
I like it. The ending is really the highlight. Leading up to it, it's pretty much a standard, solid Doctor Who episode that does everything competently, but it doesn't really stand out either until we get to the end. So take that as you will.
Okay, and my final thoughts is I love the Dr. Donna stuff. I will watch like best of clips forever of them, just their banter and everything. The ending is really powerful and really good. There's some creepy, cool moments in it, but like I said, some parts just don't hold my attention at all, and it kind of bored me. And even though I know you're probably thinking the elitist thing ruined it for me, it didn't. It's just like I said, one of those things I would point out that's a continuous thing throughout the rest of the Davis era that annoys me, but that is not what ruins this episode for me. I still think the ending's pretty powerful, even with the cheese ball worshipping Donna and the doctor at the very, very, very end.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't mind that bit, but I can see taking it in a.
But yeah, episode I wish I liked more. But anyway,
Nah.
I think that's it for today. Anyway, goodbye.
Bye.
What?